Hey, what's going on everyone? Clocked it here. So yeah, I'm a little bit late, so you have to forgive me, but of course I'm going to give my thoughts on those scum, suckety, maggoty, industry destroying Sony pig dogs who have recently announced that they are no longer producing physical games from 2028 for their platforms. Now, as we know, Sony are part of the Blu-ray crew, so they got big stakes in this, so once they get rid of physical media on their platforms, it's going to have a much wider impact, as I'm sure you've learned, or as you should know. It's a big deal. We know this, and, the ripple effects will be worldwide, for many things, which I think, a lot of people don't realize, even people who are just purely digital, I don't think they realize the ripple effects of this, because, as we know, I don't want to go too deep into this, because I want my video to be about something just, at a slightly different angle, in terms of physical games. But, as soon as you have an ecosystem that is fundamentally in full control of the pricing, you can kiss your ass as a consumer. You can kiss your consumer choices ass goodbye, because you have no power. Right now we have no power when it comes to digital games. As we saw Sony, they just decided to take away movies, saying that they lost the licenses, blah 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 blah. If they want to, they can snap their fingers and take away whatever they bloody want. Absolute scum. They're just the worst. And they are definitely one of the four horsemen of the gaming industry, apocalypse, who have done such staggering amounts of damage to this industry. I don't think people realize this. I want to do a video, just on where I am with all the platform holders. I've been meaning to do these dedicated videos for a while. I will get around to it. But without wasting any more time, I want to dial this back a bit. Just breathe and just talk about. I am here, by the way. Sorry about the still background. I'll be showing stuff now, but I just want to talk about what a physical game was, right? And I do have a few examples here, but I might just end up showing two or three, just to get my point across. Now, so let's romanticize a bit, right? So, as one example here, right, I have, because we're talking about PlayStation, right? PlayStation. See my other consoles in the background here. Sega Saturn, yes, people. I have a game here. It's called Parasite Eve. If you're not aware of Parasite Eve, you need to sort yourself out. It's one of my favorite games on the original PlayStation. Now, I'm gonna say something crazy here. This game is not a PlayStation game. Right? It's not a PlayStation game. It is a game by Squaresoft. Okay? just bear with me a second. It's a game by Squaresoft that they decided to release on the PlayStation platform, and that's an important thing to remember. These consoles, especially the PlayStation brand, they are platforms for third parties, other developers to put their games on. Not exclusively. In this case, Parasite Eve was exclusive. We know there are many reasons for that generation. I don't want to go that road because I will get angry. that's where it all started, people. But it was exclusive to the PlayStation, right? But it's a Squaresoft game, and Squaresoft at the time, they were known. Not so much in the UK. This is the American version. This original game never released in the UK. The sequel did, but the original game never. So this is the US version. But they weren't, that well known in the UK. The biggest hitters in the UK for Squaresoft at the time were on the Super Nintendo. And we didn't even get that much over here in the UK. The Secret of Manas and stuff like that. We never got Final Fantasy 6. We never got the Chrono Triggers. The ones that people really, really big up, right? I'm including myself because I love those games, especially Final Fantasy 6. But Squaresoft weren't really that known. So what a physical game was, you know, for many companies back then, you know, who could do it, who wanted to show you who they were. What a physical game was a product telling you, this is us, right? This is us, and this is what we do. So if I just open this up, actually, before I open it, let's just turn it over, right? And you know, we used to love this stuff, right? Reading what a game was on the back. Because you go into a game shop, right? You go into a game shop, you see this on the shelf. See this on the shelf, right? You're gonna say, "Ooh, what's that, bro? Parasite Eve? Oh, she looks cool. What's going on here? Square who?" And you look at the back, right? You read the back. So it says the cinematic RPG. You know, one of them is a police officer. The other is possessed by an ancient evil threatening all life on Earth. The horrifying bond between them will continue until something dies. You know, that's quite intriguing. You know, but then you come to this part here. A chilling adventure that could only come from the creators of Final Fantasy VII. Now, unless you were sleeping under a rock during the PlayStation 1 era, N64, Sega Saturn era, Final Fantasy VII was a big deal, people. It fundamentally changed the industry. A big deal. I was there for this launch, working at Electronics Boutique. I'll never forget that. Final Fantasy VII brought JRPGs to the masses. Okay? It's a big game. So what Squaresoft are going to do is, whatever product they release after that, they're going to name their big hits that they've done before. Right? And back then, you'd even do it in magazines, but front-facing, in your face, in real life, in the world, as you walk into the game shops. Okay, so if you read that and you'd already played Final Fantasy VII, you'd be like, whoa, a new game for the guys who done Final Fantasy VII is crazy. But let's just open this up, right? And of course, you know, you always got the lovely discs, beautiful artworks inside, because once again, this was their product. This is something that they were proud of, something they made. Their artists, their directors, their programmers, you know, everyone involved, the composers, right? Everyone involved. This is the accumulation of all their efforts to say, this is from us. We're Squaresoft. This is what we love to do. Please, please be a fan of us. Because that's one thing, that's another thing to remember. You know, these companies, back then as well, when they were still young in many ways, they weren't still fully yet sure on who their crowds were, who their fans were, who their supporters were. Right, and they were being experimental with all the types of games that they were doing. You know, what would stick? And actually, I take that back. It's not even what would stick. It's like, we have an idea. I want to make a game that involves something like this. And once again, those developers, they all get on board. The artists, the composers, the directors, they all get together and say to themselves, we can make this work, but let's bring our ideas together and make what we feel, what we want to make, and hopefully what other people will like. But you know, let me just go back here. You get the second disc, of course. But inside this physical item was them advertising themselves, their other products. Xenogears, Bushido Blade. I the first Bushido Blade. Too many hours on that game. Musashi, Final Fantasy VIII, right? You know, this is Squaresoft, 1998. Look at our portfolio of games, people. Do you like Parasite Eve? Have a look at these games we've also made. This is us. We're so proud of our products. This is what we do. Please try us. Please stick with us. Right? It wasn't just a physical item for you to own the game. You know, be proud of something you picked up, to have a memory of it. You know, it was, for Squaresoft, them in physical form. Yes, they had to release it in the standard case of what PlayStation, as the platform holder, wanted and sold it as. You know, PlayStation sold the discs. You know, they wanted it. They wanted their cases to be universal in many ways. Yes, they had to go with that format, but everything else was Squaresoft. The artwork, the interior, the discs, the artwork. Once again, you know, the manual. And even if I open them, if I remember correctly, you know, so there you go. Like, so, like even in here, You know, just say, you know, I think, you know, which Squaresoft games do you own? And even, let's just say this Parasite Eve was the first one you ever picked up. You'd be like, what's Turbo number 1? What's Final Fantasy 8? You know, what's Ironhander? Ironhander is one of the greatest shoot 'em ups of all time. That's what Ironhander is. But, you know, they are advertising themselves as a business, as a product, as a company, as artists. And even straight, you know, you don't have to complete the game. Go straight into the manual. This is who made the game. They're so proud. You know, Hironobu Sakaguchi. If you don't know who Hironobu Sakaguchi is, go sort yourselves out, people. Sort yourselves out. But everything that they are, you know, is in here. And I read, you know, if you're being, you know, romantic about the developers themselves, saying, I'm so proud of what we've made. You know, I'm so proud of this. You know, let's launch it, and hopefully, you know, people will buy it because they would enjoy what we've made because we've enjoyed making it as well. You know, that's what physical games are. And then what we attach to it is everything else. You know, our memories. You know, our love for picking up a game, falling in love with it, and knowing then that we have this. You know, we remember when Squaresoft made this. How much effort and passion and love that they put into it. You could just see it. Just in the case itself. You know. Yeah, Ayabria there. Yeah, you know, just you could just see it. And you feel it, and you got it. And this belongs to you, and everything else that's attached to it. And you roll on from there. Whatever they make next, you know, they build a pedigree as a company of who they are. You know, it doesn't matter what you release. You know, if you release a console, you're not going to release it looking like a bag of crap or anything. You're releasing it. It has a design. It has designers. It has thought processes, you know, into it. You know, whether they are good intentions or bad intentions. You know? But you don't release something, you know, that you're not proud of. You know, and this is what developers used to be. They used to be so proud of what they made as a product, as inventors, as artists, as animators, as directors, as composers, all coming together. To get all those people to come together to make this, you have to be proud of it. You have to celebrate it. You know, and if this is taken away, what you have instead, just a TV screen with a thumbnail in a sea of other thumbnails as you're trying to fight, you know, for to be seen in the sea of thumbnails, you know. And you know, it's a different intention, right? You go online on an online store, it's a different intention to getting off up your butt and purposefully go into a dedicated game store, wherever video games are sold, and browsing and being interested and curious to see what's in front of you, picking it up and knowing what you want, or trying to find something that you want, you know. And you know, this is what developers done, right? So if I just grab another game, you know, Neverwinter Nights, okay? You know, we now know who BioWare is, okay? We know who BioWare is. Back then, they were still a smallish company. You might not have known BioWare, you know. You might not even have known Baldur's Gate, but if you did, they're once again purposely saying, on this brand new game here, Neverwinter Nights. I love this game. I still remember picking it up in EB when I was working there. You know, from the creators of Baldur's Gate. You know, they're saying, look guys, look what else we've done. And if you play Baldur's Gate, you can like, whoa, okay, what's this about? Because Baldur's Gate was fantastic. You know, Neverwinter Nights is the most eagerly anticipated 3D RPG ever created. 4 years in the making, Neverwinter Nights features beautifully rendered real 3D environments and a revolutionary game editor. I remember the game editor, you know, you could actually create your own quests and everything. It was, you know, absolutely immense. You know, but they were so proud of Neverwinter Nights. You know, and let's just say I open this up. Oh, there we go. There's my EB receipt when I used to work in EB from 97 to 2000, right? So let's just grab something here, okay? Quick reference card, you know, these things that they put in there. And, you know, if you're a Dungeons and Dragons fan, which Neverwinter Nights is about, same with Baldur's Gate, you know, you love stuff like this. Video games, you know, weren't just a digital thing on a screen. You know, because they can't be. If you got this console here, and you got this controller, okay, you're already externally connected, right? You're grabbing this controller, and you're feeling this tangible object in front of you. It connects to this console, okay, which then connects to the screen, okay? But the physical object as well was something that the developers wanted you to connect to as well. That's why they put so much effort into their products. And, you know, D&D games were like that anyway. You know, if you wanted to, you know, play a D&D game, this is what we loved about D&D. We loved having things next to us. You know, notes and pads and maps and things like that. You know, inventories and reference cards, you know, just to look back on. Interact both in and out of the game. You know, this is what we loved, right? You get the usual stuff in there like that. But, you know, if you know, and then you got the map here, right? And a map of Neverwinter, right? You just open this up, okay? So, you know, today, I feel like if maps are put in, you know, collector's editions there, and this isn't a collector's edition, by the way. This was just a standard game, same as Parasite Eve, just a standard version of the game, right? These maps here weren't just things just to be thrown in for the sake of it. Just say, yeah, give them a map as well. You know, just bulk out, you know, everything that we got in. No, you know, these maps were them saying, look at the world we have created. This is our new Neverwinter world, right? Our new world. We want you to see it. We want you to feel it tangible. We want you to have it next to you while you've got it on your TV or you got it on your PC screen as you're playing. You know, and you can have reference points and stuff like that. This was them saying, this is my brand new world. I'm so proud of this world. Just look at it. Fall in love with it. Delve into it. You know, I promise you, we put so much heart and soul into this. You know, we love it, and we hope you will love it. You know, and these manuals, right? These were more than just how do you play the games, right? It's got all that stuff anyway, your handbooks and, you know, but, you know, it tells you it wants you to get involved. The player's handbook. It wants you to get involved with the stats. You're going to have this here. You could have your mouse and keyboard by here, and you'd be playing it. You'd be like, wow, look, it's okay. As you're interacting with both the digital and physical product. You know, and it's always like, you know, and yeah, I think I just saw people and places just then, right? Places and people. And they want to give you background stories and stuff, not just to read on the screen, but have it here in front of you, knowing that this tangible object is their heart and soul, their product. We're BioWare. This is what we make. We're so proud of it. We put everything into this. Please enjoy it. Get involved. You know, it's what they do. And, you know, with Sony taking away physical objects from their platforms. You know, let me just actually go and you know, get a PlayStation game a second.
12 seconds later.
Yeah, so I've returned with a PlayStation 4 game, right? This is Uncharted 4. Okay, A Thief's End, the fourth game in the series, right? If you didn't know anything about this series, you know, what is it? You know, they tell you a little bit back here, you know, Drake, Sam, Sully, obviously people, you know. With a number 4, now you already know that's a fourth thing in the game, but in the series, but you know, you open this up. You know, what are physical games anymore anyway? You know, it's like the disconnect happened years ago, people. Absolutely years ago. Physical games these days now are literally just a way for you to own the game. You know, physically. If, of course, the game is on the disc and all that bloody nonsense, and if it's all the data's on here and doesn't need day one downloads and all that crap, right? But it just feels lifeless. absolutely lifeless. And this isn't a reason to say, yeah, you should go all digital. You know, it's showing a disconnect from where we used to be, where the industry used to be. You know, and these companies have been, you know, doing it. If I just brought up one more here, just even like, there you go, perfect. You know, even like with, you know, Sega, my side about sweet. You know, Sega, they were showing you, you know, once again, who they were in. Oh my god, guys, this is like, let's scratch that game. You know, if I took out the manual, you'd see the same stuff, full details of the background, beautiful artwork on the front. That's sitting on a store shelf is going to capture your attention. But even inside there, you know, Sega advertising what's coming up. Burning Rangers, I love that game, people, love it. Shining Force 3, House of the Dead, Panzer Dragoon Saga, favorite game ever, people. And then on the back, right, other third-party games. You were always, I say always, wasn't always. You know, you were advertising yourselves. You know, not just the game, but you as a company. You know, what do you do? What have you done in the past? You know, how do gamers know who you are? Is it just by name? You know, here in a magazine, you know, all that type of stuff. It was another avenue. Another avenue. You know, which for PlayStation owners, you know, I've been a PlayStation owner since day one. You know, I'd say day one, 97. Here's my PS2 under as well. I got PS3, PS4. Bought a PS5 this Christmas. You know, one of the, it's just garbage. It's probably the most pointless console I've ever bought at the moment. You know, I bought it for Christmas for one reason. It was the cheapest it had ever been. 360 quid, I think I got it for. And that was literally the cheapest it's ever been. I just thought, you know what, just get it now. There might be a few games you want in there. I'm currently playing Metal 4 Refantasio and you know, Armored Core. And you know, if someone said to me, you know, do you need those games in your life? You know, I'd be like, oh, no, not really. You know, not really. But you know, I've got the PS5, and you know, I'll eventually, you know, pick up a few secondhand games. You know, because I have that option with the PS5, right? A consumer option to, you know, to get whatever I want. You know, whether it's digital or, you know, or physical. But you know, it's just, you know, what games used to be were, what physical games used to be were, you know, something else. Like I said, a statement. You know, this is World of Warcraft. This is my original copy, people. I was there on the beta, you know, at the very start, and then the retail game released. Look at this game. Just look at it. This is just a photo on the front. You know, after Blizzard's, you know, big boxes, you know, which had a wealth of stuff in there as well. PC games became smaller, but they still didn't skimp out on, you know, showing you, hey, I'm Blizzard. Look what I'm going to be. Look what this is. This is the World of Warcraft. This is our first online, massively multiplayer game. Right, our first MMO. Okay, we want you to. Oh man, all my discs are falling out everywhere. You know, this is who we are. If you heard of us before, great. If you haven't, perfect. Here you go. If you haven't, you know, this is us. This is our Blizzard product catalog. Who are we? What have we made? Right, you know we're making the World of Warcraft, right? But we're also going to be bringing you StarCraft Ghosts. Which is a shame. I was so hyped for StarCraft Ghosts, man. So far, if I remember, that character's name was Nova. Oh, there you go. It's literally right there. Nova, right? It's going to be a third-person, you know, stealth action game. I couldn't wait for it, but yeah, unfortunately got cancelled. But, you know, we roll on to Warcraft 3. Frozen Throne is expansion. Diablo 2, Lord of Destruction expansion. 2 of the best games ever made, people. Just two of my favorite games ever. You know, but this is, you know, Blizzard as well, just saying, hey, this is what else we do. And then people go, what? What's Warcraft? World of Warcraft. Oh, okay. Maybe it's to do with Warcraft 3. Yeah. I think if you were picking up World of Warcraft, you probably knew Warcraft 3 by then, but hey, not everyone does. Yeah, not everyone does. I just, You know, physical games are just, you know, they are so important. You know, I'm not a collector. I've never called myself a collector. You know, because I've rolled through all the generations, I've just bought my games that I've wanted, and I've just been lucky enough to keep them. You know, I've never been out of gaming. It's my main hobby. You know, and I just, you know, physical games were just everything, absolutely everything. It was choice. I buy digital games, of course I do. You know, of course I do. But you know, it's just, it's everything, right? It's a developer statement, them showing you their product, them wanting to make a product like this. Look what we can make. We'll show them. We'll show how much, you know, we love our products each and every time. You know, and then for us, it's respecting that product, wanting to own it, wanting to keep it, wanting to remember it, wanting to share it, wanting to show other people, wanting to go back to it, wanting to play it whenever we want. Because we bought it, right? And we know for damn sure that as soon as Sony, right, make their games just digital only, and the only place that you can buy them is on their storefront, set by their terms, and kiss your ass goodbye in terms of choice for everything. And digital only people, it will affect you, because what's the incentive for the sale if the only place you can buy it? If the only place you can buy it is on their store, what's the incentive for them to drop the price? You know, unless the games literally don't sell at all. But you know, when does that happen? People literally just pre-ordered Grand Theft Auto, you know, 6 for $100 without batting an eyelid, right? You know, and then what about other developers? You know, I'm sure there are some developers who are just like, hey man, you know, it's going to save us money on you know, just having to release a game on you know, these bits of plastic here, crappy terms in there, you know, and I'm pay Sony for these discs, you know. But what happened between here and here? What happened? You know, what happened? The only thing that happened was greed and you know, and pride and vanity. You know, and us as consumers, what do we benefit from all of this happening? Absolutely nothing, people. Absolutely nothing. Even if you're a digital owner only, you know, what do you benefit from this? You know, you have no more video game stores, you know, no more physical games, and those digital prices will most likely stay high. Or you can have your games just snatched away from you anytime, because the consumer laws just aren't there, and they're not there yet. You know, will I be buying the PlayStation 6? No. It took me 5 years to get the PS5. It took me 5 years to get the PS5, and I had to wait for that to come super cheap. And you're not getting that super cheap now, are you? You know, it's yeah, hell no. Hell no. No way I'm buying a digital only console. You know, it strips away everything that a console was supposed to be. You know, for me, I say everything, a massive part of it. You know, a massive part, strips it away. Yeah, you know, a dark time for the industry. The only thing I'm hoping that will happen, is that this industry burns down. It burns down, right? Sony, when they released that PS6, right, I think they've already killed a massive amount of their consumers. I hope they regret every single choice that they make, right? Because you have to lose gamers. You know, it's, you know, physical games are an option in all their varieties for many people of many walks of life. You know, many walks of life. For parents that can't afford it, blah, blah, blah. Right? Many walks of life. You have to lose those gamers. You have to. Because even if Sony said, you know, only 10% of our people are buying physical games, right? Okay, and well, how many PS5s are sold? 100 million PS5s? I can't remember. That's still 10 million people. 10 million people you are sticking your finger up to, your middle finger up to. It's absolute insanity. You know, they can kiss my ass. I don't need any more PlayStations. You know, I was done. That's why it took me 5 years to get the PS5. I was done with PlayStation when they got rid of Japanese studios. The Japanese studios. You know, because they're Western third-party games, and I've picked up Uncharted 4. I think I've had this for about 2 years. I haven't even fired it up. Bought it secondhand, cheap as crap. You know, they're Western games just doing for me. It was always the Japanese games. Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, Gravity Rush. You know, those games. You know, at least on the PS4. You know, but yeah, I've waffled on long enough. You know, like I said, there's a million of these videos out. I just thought it was important to just remind us all, you know, as a developer, this was their product, and they can't do this anymore with PlayStation. Not even in the slim versions that they do now with it in terms of their physical. They can't show themselves off like this anymore. They can't have that retail presence anymore. You know, they can't have that tangible object. So if you're a developer and you're releasing a product, you're releasing a product that's on a server. It's a product that effectively doesn't exist. You know, it's ones and zeros on a PlayStation server. It's ones and zeros on a PlayStation server. Yeah, how embarrassing. I'm sure there will be developers who will say, who will try and find other avenues to release physical games. You know, because they want to. And, I hope they abandon PlayStation. I hope retail stores abandon PlayStation. Because what do retail stores have to offer their consumers? Yeah, we're selling this console here, but we can't sell you any games. Actually, use this little leaflet here. You know, you can buy it with this code. But then the person would just say, well, can't I just buy it on the console? Yeah, you can. How about these PlayStation, voucher codes? It's just, what an embarrassment. What an absolute embarrassment. Anyway, I'm done. Done. Thanks for listening. Let me know your thoughts, people. Take care all, and stay beautiful. And stay physical, people. And yeah, play Parasite Eve. Play Parasite Eve.